Welcome. Shalom. So now we're going to do chapter 2 of the book of Ezra. But, there's a concept that I gave a little hint we're going to study tonight is the idea of the 10 tribes. Uh, the 10 lost tribes are not completely lost, and we'll study the sources inside. So let's um, let's start with a review of three of the verses we said last week. The book of Ezra, chapter 1, verse 5, and then chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Okay, so let me do again the Hebrew. Chapter 1, verse 5. ויקומו ראשי האבות ליהודה ובנימין והכהנים והלוויים וכל העיר האלוהים אסרוכו לעלות לבנות אס בית אדוני אשר בירושלים. Okay, can you please translate, Teresa, the text?
So the heads of the families of Judah and Benjamin and the Kohanim and the Levites, with all those who split God, had aroused.
Spirits.
Excuse me. I had to clean my glasses. Spirits had aroused. Got up to ascend and build the temple of Hashem, which is in Jerusalem.
Okay, now let's skip ahead. We already did the whole chapter last week. Now let's skip ahead to chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. The Hebrew, Ve'ela b'nei hamadina ha'olim shvi hagola asher hegla Nebuchadnezzar melech Babel levavel v'yashuvu liYerushalayim v'Yehuda ish li'iro asher ba'u im Zerubbabel Yeshua Nehemiah Tzaraya Re'elaya Mordechai Bilshan Mispar Bigvai Rechum Ba'ana Mispar Anshe Am Yisrael. Okay, please translate verses 1 and 2 in chapter 2 of the book of Ezra.
These are the people of the country which ascended from the captivity of the exile that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had exiled to Babylonia, who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each man to his city, who came with Zerubbabel,
Zerubbabel,
Yeshu, Nehemiah, Sarah, Rila, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispor Bigva, Reuben, and Baanah, who comprised the sum of the dignitaries of the people of Israel.
Very good. Okay. All right. So from these verses, and if you go to a local synagogue, there is a Kohen Levi Yisrael, right? So obviously some of the Levites stuck around for the 10 tribes from the 10 tribes, right? Now, it doesn't prove that the 10 tribes are still that there were remnants of the 10 tribes yet in Judea, because just from that you could say, well, in Jerusalem, of course, there were the Levites, the priests in the temple. So of course some Levites survived, right? So you don't automatically say that just because the tribe of Levi is mentioned here, that the 10 tribes are not lost, right? We know for sure the 10 tribes were exiled. But the colloquial assumption that the 10 tribes were exiled and remained in exile is not accurate. And tonight we're going to learn some of the sources. Okay, so we'll revisit these verses later after we see the evidence, but first we have to go chronologically. So we know, in the Book of Kings, right, in the Book of Chronicles, uh, foretold in Jeremiah, and also when in Lamentations, that there was a siege and suffering and exile from Jerusalem in Judea. Judea was exiled about 120 years after the northern tribes were exiled. Okay, but when they were exiled, was it only Yehuda, Benjamin, and a portion of the tribe of Levi, or were there more? So for this, we have to go to the Book of Chronicles. Chronicles, the author of the Book of Chronicles is also the prophet Ezra. So it's fascinating. To understand this, we have to go to the writings of Ezra, but completely, comprehensively, and then we'll quote from a medrash. Okay, so if we have the Book of Chronicles, I'm going to use my Tanakh Stone Edition because it's the most likely of any of these artful books to be in your possession. We're going to Second Chronicles.
Rabbi, we have the Millstone edition.
Milstein, oh, of Chronicles?
Yes.
Okay. Well, just to be tough on you, I'm going to still use the Stone Edition.
Okay.
But if you have any questions or insights you want to share, you're welcome. So, but let's just look at the actual verses because you know the concept of 10 lost tribes, 10 lost tribes, 10 lost tribes. People assume that all the 10 tribes were lost, except for obviously a part of Levi, right? But that's not accurate. Let's first look in the reign of Hezekiah, recorded by Ezra and Chronicles. Chronicles gives a more comprehensive discussion of what happened during the kings of Judah. The kings of Israel are the main focus, and of course the prophets of Israel are the main focus in the books of Kings. But the kings of Judea are the main focus in the Book of Chronicles. Okay, so chapter 30 in Chronicles 2. Okay. So now we're going to see scriptural evidence that people were in the land of the northern tribes. Now we're going to have to also look for, let's take a more skeptical view about it for purposes of being a better scholar. We're going to have to look for evidence that not only people were in the land of the 10 northern tribes, there were also human beings from of the original 10 tribes in the cities, right? So we need evidence, not just saying the territories of the 10 tribes, but also that somehow the people are connected to the 10 tribes. Let's first find scriptural evidence before we look in the midrashic evidence. Okay, 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 10 and 11. Okay, so if Teresa, can you please translate 10 and 11, 2 Chronicles chapter 30?
On chapter 2?
2 Chronicles chapter 30.
Oh, chapter 30, excuse me.
No problem. I could change it to chapter 2 just to mess with you, but I figure probably better I actually give you the correct information.
Oh,
okay. 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verses 10 and 11.
10 and 11. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
The runners passed from city to city in the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, up to Zebulun, but people laughed at them and mocked them. However,
okay, pause for a second. So we see the territories of Ephraim and Manasseh, but which people were laughing at them, we don't know for sure. And we know, of course, there was the exile of the 10 tribes. So this in and of itself is not sufficient evidence, even though it mentions these territories. I want you to understand the difference between evidence and what is not admissible to change the assumptions that were given in the books of Kings and earlier later in Chronicles that there were the complete exile. Um, well, especially in the Book of Kings, to say the complete exile of the 10 tribes. Okay, verse
Okay.
11, please translate.
Verse
However,
11. Okay, thank you.
You had a question, Mark?
No, yes, I did, but you answered it, and I found it, and I am thankful for your patience. Verse 11 and Chronicles. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm not a doctor, but it's nice to know I have patience. Okay,
Oh, you're
so now,
welcome.
well, thank you. Okay, verse 11, please, Therese.
however, some people from Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem.
This sounds more promising that it's people from, but it's still saying Menashe, Zebulun, Asher, Menashe, Zebulun. We have to make sure, of course, this is not just from the territories, Judeans who settled there, but these are actual people from these tribes. So let's look for further scriptural evidence. Okay. So now let's look at verse 18, same chapter. For many.
All right. For many of the people, many from uh, Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not purified themselves, and they ate the Pesach offering, not in accordance with that which is written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, "May the benevolent Hashem grant atonement for whoever set his heart to seek out God, Hashem, the God of his forefathers, though without the purity required for the sacrifice."
So now the commentary, and if you look in our school chapter 30 of Second Chronicles, verse 6, even in the Stone Edition, it says, although the 10 tribes had not yet been exiled, they were under Assyrian domination, and their overlords often took groups of people into exile. So the implication in the Art Scroll commentary on verse 30 is two things. Number one, this was actual people from the 10 tribes, but it doesn't meet our requirement for evidence because this occurred in the time of Hezekiah right before the exile of the 10 tribes. So yes, it was talking about the 10 tribes, but it was not talking about the 10 tribes after the exile of the 10 tribes. Okay. So in other words, during the reign of the last king of the northern kingdom, Ephraim, Israel, so that kingdom, the king Hoshea ben Elah, he was more. He liberalized the border. He allowed people to visit the temple in Jerusalem. That's why we find that the runners went all the way up to the territory of Asher, which is north of the city of Tyre, and so they went all the way into deep into the territories of the northern tribes, and they were allowed to by the soldiers of the north because of the liberalization by the last king of the northern tribes. But it doesn't prove that the northern tribes were not exiled because this happened right before the exile. Okay, so now in chapter 31, still in Second Chronicles, chapter 31, verse 1. Can you please translate to that one, Teresa?
When
31 verse 1. Mhm.
excuse me. When all this was finished, all the people of Israel who were present went out to the cities of Judah and smashed the pillars, cut down the Asherah trees, and dismantled the high places and the altars from out of all of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh until they were completely eradicated. Then all the children of Israel returned each man to his property to their cities.
Okay, so we see the phrase Chol Yisrael, or all Israel, and Kol Bnei Israel, all the children of Israel. This is referring to implicitly the 10 tribes. Those are the 10 tribes who visited Judea during Hezekiah's great sacrifice for all the tribes. He had a special service in Jerusalem for all the 12 tribes. So that's why Hezekiah is connected the most of any prophet to the as a as a forerunner of messianic times. All 12 tribes came to Jerusalem after being separated for over 200 years by the idolatrous northern kingdoms and regimes and kings. Okay, so but here, remember, Ezra is writing down the phrase Kol Yisrael and Kol Bnei Israel is primarily referring to the members of the northern tribes. Perhaps some Judeans went with them, to help them with the mitzvah of destroying the idols, but this is primarily talking about the heroic visitors to the temple after the first time in 200 years. They said, oh, this is the real service of God. Let's get rid of those idols back at home. You understand? Otherwise, it would have started a civil war if the armies of Judea went in, right? So implicitly, we must say that this is primarily speaking about the northern tribes. When Ezra writes the words Kol Yisrael and Kol Bnei Israel. Okay, all right. So remember this precedent, 2 Chronicles 31, and at the start of the chapter. Okay, now, but let's go to the time later in the 2 Chronicles, when for sure the 10 tribes were exiled. This is after the exile. The exile occurred later in the reign of Hezekiah. Okay, so now let's go to the story of King Josiah.
I late reply, everyone, dear uncles and aunts and parents. I'm so sorry for the late reply. I
okay.
was busy getting ready for this year. I'm so sorry if I came a little late.
No, getting ready for a class is okay as long as you get there in time for the class. Otherwise, you're getting ready for the next class.
I tried my hardest and best to get on time for this awesome class.
Well, you're extremely early for the next class.
It was just so hard.
Let's look at it positively.
It's just so hard for me to deal with the stress right now that we're facing.
Okay, I understand. Well, at least
ever come.
Oh, don't worry, he's on the way. Okay, yes, so
with him around, we'll have a better life, right, Abba?
Of course. I mean, on a daily basis, there's people dying because of the war in Israel. So
that's terrible.
Well, right. I mean, if you think about it, even soldiers are not fair game. There's a philosophy among many in Western civilization. Civilians are off limits. Soldiers are fair game. But the soldiers would be civilians if not for the belligerence of the opposing enemies. So therefore, these soldiers are like 20-year-old kids who are dying. God help us. It's been almost like a daily basis. And in the past 24 hours, I believe 4 more Israelis of that age have passed away in the war. So God help us. Please bring Mashiach as soon as possible in the right time. Obviously, I said elsewhere, the reason why the sages of Israel said that God should send the redemption beam hair of Yaminu swiftly in our days. They didn't say Mashiach now, like Chabad says, because if people are not yet worthy, God forbid, then you need some sort of cataclysmic event to bring Mashiach sooner. So by saying as soon as possible, it's better according to this idea than to even say Mashiach now, unless when you say Mashiach now, your intention is Mashiach now without any more cataclysmic type events. But if asking for Mashiach immediately would be only possible by bringing in an October 7th type of tragedy, so then this very much would explain why the majority of the sages still have the prayers Bimhera B'Yameinu is swiftly in our days, and not bring Mashiach immediately. You understand? Okay, so let's get back to our study, discussing 10 tribes. The remnant of the 10 tribes are still among the Jewish people. Chapter 2 in Chronicles, verse 34. Chapter 2 in Chronicles, chapter 34. The reign of Josiah, which was after the exile of the 10 tribes, certainly.
Okay. Second Chronicles chapter 34.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to verse 6. Please read verse 6.
And the cities of Manasseh and Ephraim and Simeon up to Naphtali with their hatchets all around.
Okay, so now we're talking about cities. We're not yet talking about the tribes themselves, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're back to this, that this is not in and of itself proof. The 10 tribes are still among the Jewish people.
Rabbi, I
Mhm.
must ask, what verse are we in on chapter 34 of Chronicles?
We just read verse 6.
Verse 6. Thank you very much.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Certainly, yes.
It said the 12th year earlier in the chapter. That means that Joash was 20 when he went into the northern kingdoms with their hatchets to chop down the idols.
Josiah.
Josiah.
Um, that's a good question. You have. Why don't you tell us the answer? You've got the
No,
comments.
I'm reading it because I'm not sure I'm understanding it correctly. It says Josiah was 8 when he became king. In the 12th year, he began to seek out the God of his forefather. He began to purge Judah and Jerusalem of the high places and the Asherah trees. And then we could jump to your verse 6 and the cities of Manasseh and Ephraim. So I'm thinking, was he 12 years old or was this the 12th year of his reign? That's more the question I had. Because if he was 12 years old, then he was 20.
Well, it
I
says
mean,
in
if the
verse 1 of
12th year of
34,
his reign,
verse
yeah,
134, he was 8 years old when he became king. He reigned for
right.
31 years.
So in the 12th year, that would be the 12th year of his reign.
Probably.
So 8 plus
Otherwise, it would say in
12
his
is,
12th, yeah,
so then he would have, he
the
was
12th year.
20. He was 20 when he went out to knock down those idols.
Yes,
Okay.
apparently so.
Trying.
Good math.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so um what's the last verse we read? Was it 34:6?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, so now do verse 9 of chapter 34, please.
Okay.
Teresa.
They went to Hilkiah, the Cohen
Hilkiah.
Gadol. I'm sorry, Hilkiah,
Hilkiah.
Hilkiah, the Cohen Gadol, and delivered the money that had been brought for the temple of God, which the Levite gatekeepers had collected from Manasseh and Ephraim, and from the rest of the remnant of Israel, and from Judah and Benjamin, and then returned to Jerusalem.
The rest of the remnant of Israel. So when it says Manasseh and Ephraim, is it talking about the territory of the people? Then it says the rest of the remnant of Israel. This implicitly is talking about, because the phrase She'eris Israel, remnant of Israel, is only talking about the people, not the land. This is the first certain verse we know that it's talking about the 10 tribes. Okay, and then look at the way. Let's see, what's the next verse I wanted to quote. Okay, so then verse 33 of chapter 34, the last verse of the chapter. Please read that.
Josiah removed all of the
King Josiah.
King Josiah removed all the abominations from all the lands that belonged to the children of Israel, and he impressed all who were present in Israel to worship Hashem, their God. All his days they did not veer from following Hashem, the God of their fathers.
Your edition of ArtScroll has Josiah or King Josiah?
It just says Josiah.
Okay, that's actually more accurate according to the according to the actual text. It says Vayasar Yoshio. It doesn't say Vayasar Yoshio Hamelech. It's actually Josiah removed. So the ArtScroll Blue edition is correct. However, the ArtScroll is arguing with ArtScroll, and this ArtScroll says, where'd you hear that one before? So I'm sorry, ArtScroll is the overall the best translation out there. It's just God has blessed us to discover these differences in edition. So yeah, so in the Stone edition it says King Josiah. Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next verse I wanted to quote. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead to where is that verse? It's good to look up the verses in the same edition you're going to use in the class. Sorry. Page numbers are different, so bear with me.
I have to make sure that my art scroll agrees with your art scroll.
Well, no, we've discovered in this class that don't expect that right now.
I'm not, but I had to mention it.
As long as it's in the range of the art scroll ambiguity, it's still probably better than most translations out there. Okay.
Okay. All right.
The thing is this, is that the art scroll has the same editors on both editions, so they're saying either way is okay. You understand? That's basically what they're doing. But there's been times when I rejected both of them.
I have to. Okay,
Right, but
you are the rabbi, and I will agree.
but there's been times in this class I rejected both Art Scrolls and went with the Judaica Press
You
because
read. All
not
right,
because
fine.
Judaica Press is necessarily right, but he doesn't argue with himself. So,
Okay. All right. Okay.
uh, but yeah, maybe it's right. Okay, I'm sorry. Just being,
Okay.
okay. Okay, so then okay, verse 17 of chapter 35. Can you read that, Teresa?
Verse 17. So the children of Israel who were present performed the Pesach offering at that time, and then the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days.
Verse 18.
Such a Pesach offering had not been celebrated since the days of Samuel the prophet. None of the kings of Israel performed like the Pesach offering that Josiah did with the Kohanim, the Levites, all of Judah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
And Israel who were present. It's clearly talking about people from the northern tribes who were present in the days of Josiah. Okay. So we have scriptural evidence, 10 tribes, a remnant of them joined. So there was actually a number put on that there was 25% of the 10 tribes. We learned previously, 25% of the 10 tribes joined, returned from exile. And so whenever you hear about the lost tribes, we're only talking about a huge portion, 75% of the tribes did not return in the days of Josiah. But we see that the 10 tribes were not poisoned to stay away from Judah. Even from the days of Hezekiah before the exile, they felt united with Judah to the point that they were ignoring the advice of their kings and they were destroying their own idols. So surely those who were fighting against idolatry, many of them were able to escape the exile of the 10 tribes who were exiled because of idolatry, according to the multiple prophets. So therefore, we know even in the days of Hezekiah, there was a remnant with of the 10 tribes, and I saw one commentary said it was 10%. 10% of the 10 tribes were with after the exile of the 10 tribes. 90% were exiled, 10% remained. And then in the days of Josiah, the percent went up to 25%. So whenever we hear any discussion of the lost tribes of Israel, it's only discussing those descended from the 75% who were still in exile from the days of Josiah. Okay, that's the scriptural evidence. Now, but you would want it to be a bit more clear, right? Because here in the Book of Ezra, what does it say, right? It talks only about Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? So let's get at least one quote from the oral Torah that says this explicitly, right? Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice.
Good luck.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, the oral Torah. Yes.
Okay, so in Tana Develiyahu,
In
the
what?
Medrash of Elijah the prophet,
Gotcha.
and this is a Medrash that was even discussed in the Gemara in Kesuvos, so we know it was already known in the days of the Gemara. Okay, so it has the Medrash is called Tana Develio. We learned it in the Yeshiva of Elijah, and the first section is called Seder Eliyahu Rabbah, and the second section is called Seder Eliyahu Zuta. Rabbah means great, and Zuta means small in Aramaic. So in Seder Eliozuta, chapter 9. This is in the middle of the chapter in this edition, which is the Shai Lamora edition. It's in paragraph 6, Seif Vav. But in other editions, for example, I have another one here. This is the Risamim Tzofim edition. Okay. This is old school. It's printed. This one is printed with the commentary of Yeshua Yaakov, and it is. You see, there's no paragraph numbers. It's in the middle of the chapter over here. Okay. No, but I'm going to quote from the edition that has vowels. So at least if you want to read it yourself, you can more easily. This is the Shai Lamora edition. Okay. And it's nice. It's right off at the start of the page. Yeah. Vaz galu b'meitzid kiyahu aser hashavatim, and then was exiled in the days of Zedekiah, the 12 tribes, or the 10 tribes. The galu imahem shevet Yehuda Binyamin, and also exiled with them was Judah and Benjamin. The galu imahem b'nei Yerushalayim, and exiled also with them were the children of Jerusalem. Whoa! So look back, right in the books of Kings, etc. Talk about the exile. What does it say? The exile of Judah, right? The exile of Jerusalem. But here in Eliozuta, chapter 9, it's saying that it was the exile of the 10 tribes plus Judah and Jerusalem. In other words, implicitly here in Eliozuta, it's saying that that the 10 tribes were most of the Jews who were exiled in the days of Zedekiah, in the days of the Jews were exiled from Jerusalem. This is talking about the time of Zedekiah, the destruction under the Babylonians. Okay, so in other words, the exile of Jews in Babylon, which became the Persian Median exile, right? That was a majority. The population was 10 tribes. Okay, so now how is it 10 tribes? Remember, the largest estimate I got from another commentary we previously quoted was 25%, right? Well, what's 25% of 10? 2.5. And Judah and the small tribe of Benjamin and the half tribe of Levi accounts to approximately like the size of 2 tribes, right? So 2.5 is bigger than 2. So that means over 55% of the population of the Jewish kingdom of Josiah was, and Zedekiah was from the 10 tribes of Israel. How about that? Fascinating.
So, Rabbi, is that the same thing? Is this Eliyahu Hanavi?
Yes. Yes, this is the Medrash.
Okay, well, I got the Art Scroll edition of it, and of course, it's not broke down like any of that.
Well, you might have a different Art Scroll, could be talking about something else, but I mean, it'll be nice. Why don't you hold that off to the camera so we can check it out?
You turn the camera on.
At least the cover.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so also I wanted to quote from the Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, what does it say? The prophet through the prism of Tanakh. No, that's like a review of his life and talking about his philosophy. It doesn't say necessarily that is the Medrash Eliyahu.
I get it. Okay.
So this was written down at least, obviously, in the days of the writing of the Gemara and Kesuvos.
I have this as well, but I only have one, and I think this.
Yeah, I don't know of any translation yet of this, and I'm not sure Elijah would want one until. Oh yeah, whoa! It says Tanvelio. That's it.
That's
Very
it.
Good.
Okay, but this
okay.
Okay, I got you. So, I've only got
who's the author and publisher?
It's Abraham Yaakov Finkel is the translator, and the publisher is you know who they are.
No, who are they? Targum? Who's the
No,
publisher?
no, no. They're it's Yeshiva Beth Moshe in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so could you hold that up?
Yeah.
Tandavilio. Okay, and very nice. Excellent.
So, but
That's
that's
very
just
interesting.
one volume. I haven't found any other volumes.
What does it say? The small medrash, or so what does it say in there?
Let me
Which
see which volume I've got
You got
here.
volume 3.
Russell Kirk.
you,
Yes.
you had a question for Russell? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Russell Kirk.
Yeah. What's your question?
Yes, son. What is
Well,
your
my brother used to never be able to visit you in Texas one day. Oh my.
Yeah, he can visit me anytime he likes.
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
When? Like Thank tomorrow?
Uh, well, yeah, you put that in your queue it up in your fixing to go somewhere section.
See how he does the Mizbeach.
Where's
the Mizbeach?
Well, not here.
This
But,
is basically your
okay. Anyway,
Yeah, but no one could do it.
Uh,
More holy than us. You can do it.
here, sweet.
So what did you say
Right.
that was chapter 9, correct?
Chapter 9 of Zuta, of the smaller section, or the second section.
Okay. He didn't distinguish it whether I just have right
Surprised
here.
I invited you along to come visit him, huh?
Yeah,
I have up to chapter 4 in Zuta in this volume.
up to chapter 4.
Yeah, so I got up to chapter 4 in Zuta. So
Okay,
I
yeah, if you have the one in chapter 9, that's with this.
need volume 4.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Let me know if it came out. Maybe you could do a search for us. Let me know. Let me know afterwards. But okay. So Shaila Mora. So I guess Elio Navi doesn't mind if it's translated.
If I'm interrupting your class, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Shaila Mora comments. Okay. So he quotes another book, Zikukin Denura. So that book talks about Hiksha. It asks the question, "Lo aseres hashvatim galu kvar b'mei Hoshea ben Elah?" Was not the 10 tribes exiled in the days of Hosea son of Elah? In the Book of Kings, right? That's the last of the Northern Kingdom tribes. The last of the Northern Kingdom kings. Shvatim chazru la'aretz Yisrael b'mei Yoshiahu, that because the children of Israel returned to because the 10 tribes returned to the land of Israel in the days of Josiah, Alidei Yirmiyahu, by the hand of Jeremiah the prophet. V'achar kach, and afterwards Galu Pam Shnia, Shenis b'mei Tzidkio, and afterwards they were exiled a second time in the days of Zedekiah. So that's the commentary of Shiloh Mara quoting Savers of the Cooking to Nura. Yeah, pretty good, right? Very good. Okay, so so I'm not sure if your English edition will quote that commentary, so therefore I wanted to make sure I quoted it in class, and you could share with us news about that edition. Okay. So by the way, the Tanvalio Zuta has more like secrets that are revealed. So if you're into that kind of a thing, study of the Zuta is pretty good for that thing. But whenever you have a medrash that's citing the prophet, the words of a prophet, it's probably good to read the whole thing. So any comments or questions? Okay, in Texan, is anyone gobsmacked yet?
Okay, Rabbi.
Yes.
This has been, from what I understand, this has been a long, ongoing question. Okay. And if I am completely wrong, and I'm sure you will correct me, and I will completely accept your answer, is that where do the B'nai Noach come into this as far as the lost tribes.
Oh, so even the lost tribes of Israel, there was a prophecy discussing this, and God said, the commentaries on that, it goes basically the northern tribes were cursed, that if they were, according to some, it's a good Gemara, discussion, were the 10 tribes lost forever. It's in the Gemara and Sanhedrin Perek Achilik. So according to discussions there and the commentaries there, so the 10 tribes will survive, but their culture will be lost. And we see in halacha, if someone claims to be from the lost tribes, they must convert to Judaism. Otherwise, they're not considered Jewish. They are considered 10 tribes. They're considered B'nai Noach.
What was that source?
I don't remember it offhand. It's on the discussion of the Gemara in Sanhedrin Perek Achilik. It talks there about with the 10 tribes lost forever. So
Okay, I got you.
yeah, Sanhedrin has multiple chapters that are important for B'nai Noach to know. So that's a good volume to learn. But there's certain parts of it you could save yourself money by getting like the smaller edition, like the paperback editions of the Art Scroll. There's like from Perek Achilik, and then from the on page 57 or so, right? And then a few other places. Okay. So even theoretically biological Jews from the lost 10 tribes, because their culture was so much into idolatry, they must convert. Now, even if there's a 10 tribes, who start to observe the customs of Judah, and start to have Torah readings, right? Nevertheless, they still have to convert to be considered Jewish because of all the years, the obvious intermarriage and intermarriage without following the oral Torah to do it.
Yeah, they didn't follow the marital purity laws.
Right. So I mean, it's statistically almost impossible to imagine if especially, I mean, it's obviously clear somebody who moves, who was a lost tribe who looks, they physically look Chinese or Indian or African. So there was some sort of intermarriage, and they were not following the rules of the Torah, the oral Torah from the times of Moses. Remember, the Talmud has 3 sections. It has the halachos l'Moshe Sinai, the laws given to Moses at Sinai, the main part of the oral Torah. It has the legal case law, the codes where there's discussion and rejection of misleading logical inferences in rabbinical law. And then the third section is Agada, the Midrashim. It doesn't quote every Midrash. It usually quotes the most authoritative Midrashim. And of course, we discovered in our discussion last week an exception to that rule. Okay, so let's get back into the book of Ezra. Okay. Very good. Okay. Let's see. So we talked about, okay, so let's look back again at our verses in Ezra. Looking back at it now, because okay, so this is the situation. What have we established, right? What have we established? We have established that in the time of Zedekiah, a majority of the Jews exiled in the Judean exile from by the Babylonians were from the 10 tribes as well. A majority from 10 tribes. A majority of the 12 tribes were the 10 tribes. Okay, so that's fascinating. But now here in Ezra, how many are coming back to the Holy Land, right? Okay, because what's going to happen? There's eventually going to be a Roman exile. So now, yes, obviously the Jews in Babylonia didn't remain there. The Romans conquered all over the place, right? But before the Romans, there were the Greeks, and the Greeks maybe they relocated some of the remainder in the Babylonian area, Mesopotamia, modern Iraq area. Who knows how many of them uh, were exiled with the uh, with the Jews, who eventually became the Ashkenazim and Sephardim, etc. However, we do know that the Talmudic era occurred in the land of Israel, in the Jerusalem Talmud, and in the Babylonian area, in the days of the Babylonian Talmud. But we have not established yet a link. Okay, so first things first, we have to establish that in this here in the Book of Ezra, the start of the Second Temple Commonwealth, that that there is the 10 tribes among them. Otherwise, we don't know for sure yet that the 10 tribes are among the Jews nowadays. Because once we prove that the 10 tribes are among the Jews in the Holy Land in the days of Ezra, then we will have proven that the 10 tribes are among the Jews of Israel today. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're called Jews is because, again, there was a curse on the 10 tribes. Their culture would be lost. They completely gave themselves over to the Talmudic methods of Judah, Benjamin, and the half tribe of Levi. Okay, so now let's look again at these two verses in Ezra that we've read again today. Okay, please, can you translate them again, please, Teresa?
Chapter 2.
Ezra chapter 1 verse 5, chapter 2 verses 1 and 2.
Hold on. There we go. Verse 5. So the heads of the families of Judah and Benjamin and the Kohanim and the Levites, with all those whose spirits God had aroused, got up to ascend and build the temple of Hashem, which is in Jerusalem. Chapter 2.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second. Okay, so now we implicitly here it's saying again the majority of the Second Temple Commonwealth were the Judeans, right? But that's only on the surface. What does it actually say here? What's the first phrase? And the heads of the families. So in other words, the leadership from Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the remnant of Levi in Jerusalem that went with Judah and Benjamin, they returned to the Holy Land, right? As the leaders. Again, the Second Temple. Remember, why did that happen prophetically from Tanakh-centric perspective? Because the Northern Kingdom was prophesied to lose their culture. So of course you have to have the leaders of the Judah, Benjamin, and Levi lead them. But it only says the heads. We haven't discussed yet the people. Now let's go to the second chapter of Ezra and talk verses 1 and 2. Please continue.
These are the people of the country who ascended from the captivity of the exile of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had exiled to Babylonian, who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each man to his city.
Okay, just a second. Where did you hear that phrase before tonight? Wasn't it in Chronicles, also written by Ezra? We're talking about the same prophetic scribe, right? So he, knowing that he wrote in a certain style, right? So in Second Chronicles, let's go back to there.
Is it still online?
Yeah,
Recording?
please. I'm just looking up something. I'm sorry. I had massive brain fog today, so my concentration is not at its peak. Um, but you see, it's a miracle from Hashem. Hashem wants this information to be shared with you, so he's making sure I could teach it, whether or not I'm feeling well enough to teach it. God is good. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so chapter 31 in Second Chronicles, verse 1 at the end, right? Well, let's read verse 31, verse 1 again. Could you read that again? Second Chronicles 31, verse 1.
Yes. 31, 1.
Verse 1. Mhm.
When all this was finished, all the people of Israel who were present
Who were present, right? Go ahead.
went
Continue.
out to the cities of Judah and smashed the pillars,
Why you trust
cut down the Asherah trees, and dismantled the high places and the altars from out of all of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh, until they were completely eradicated.
Then all.
Oh, excuse me. Then all the children of Israel returned, each man to his property, to his cities, to their cities.
Here he's talking about then all the children of Israel returned, each man to his property, to their cities. Okay. Okay, but so however, so we're also talking about, he mentioned here explicitly Jerusalem and Judea, right?
Yes.
But we just established that Jerusalem and Judea, where there was exile, Elio Rabbah says explicitly it include primarily the 10 tribes, right? Primarily. Like maybe 55 to 60% of the population or something like that. Okay, and then let's read verse 2.
In Ezra?
Yeah, those who came with Zerubbabel, yeah.
Yes.
Verse 2, chapter 2.
Okay. Who came with Zerubbabel, Yeshe, Nehemiah, Ezra,
Saraya, Re'alia, Mordechai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvei, Rehum, Bana, and please continue. The number.
who comprised the sum of the dignitaries of the people of Israel.
And the Judaic Press translation, the number of the important men of the people of Israel. It says Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. Okay, but what's the default of Am Yisrael, right? According to the exile of Josiah and Zedekiah, and the Tana de Velio, Am Yisrael refers to the 12 tribes. So we have not excluded the 10 tribes yet. You see what I'm saying? So now the presumption is no longer was it 12 tribes, 10 tribes with Judah and Benjamin. The question is, are we excluding the 10 tribes from joining Judah and Benjamin? And we could only say for certain that the leaders of the 10 tribes didn't go, but the leaders of Judah and Benjamin went. But that's, of course, the prophecy that the culture of the north would be lost, and only the southern kingdom of Judea would continue its culture because it's stayed faithful longer, right? So, in other words, this doesn't overturn the idea, our new assumption that the 12 tribes are with Judah and Benjamin. It's just the leaders of Judah and Benjamin and Levi came here. Now, for Mordechai, of course, is from the story of Purim. Mordechai was from Benjamin. Most of these leaders, and Jeshua was a Levite. But most of the others are from Judah. Okay, but again, it's we're talking about the leaders, as we said in chapter 1, verse 5 of Ezra. Okay, so now let me read to you from the text of Rashi, completely translated, again in italics, in the Judaica press. You see, text of Rashi. These are the people of the province. These are the children of Israel who are from the province of the land of Israel, who are now coming up from the captivity that is in the exile to Jerusalem. Ibn Ezra explains that they were the people of the province of Babylon. And now they returned to Jerusalem, and the people of Judea returned each one to his city. Rashi. Okay, so that the Rashi and ending on verse 2, verse 1, chapter 2, sounds like it's only talking about Judah and Benjamin. But then listen to Rashi and Metsudos on verse 2 of chapter 2 of Ezra. These people of the province in the beginning, when they went into exile from Israel to Babylon with Zerubbabel, etc., Rashi. Metsudos David explains, who are now returned to their cities with Zerubbabel, etc. Okay, so in other words, they're connecting the Judeans to whoever was exiled, who was ever exiled to Babylon. And we know whoever was exiled to Babylon, the majority was, can someone paraphrase Eliyahu Zuta chapter 9? The majority was the 10 tribes.
Right.
And a significant percentage, of course, was the Judeans themselves and the residents of Jerusalem. Now, okay, so I think we pretty much established, and there'll be more implications here. Many of the people, we're going to talk many verses here in chapter 2 of Ezra. It's going to talk about because these families individually chose to go there while it was still dangerous. They were trying to do God's honor and under danger, settlement under danger. So therefore, they're given great honor, and they're mentioned each of these families. But sometimes it mentions the tribe they're from, and sometimes it doesn't. Right? Usually, it doesn't. For example, in verse 40, it says the Levites, and then it continues. And then in verse 43, the Nesinim. Who are the Nesinim? They are the descendants of the Gibeonites. Okay, verse 43 in chapter 2. We haven't read it yet, but just to conclude this chapter of our discussion, verse 43 of chapter 2 of Ezra says even the Gibeonites came back at risk to their welfare to join with the rebuilding of the temple in the time of Ezra. And it's a kal v'chomer. If the Gibeonites, who God did not entrust to be his chosen nation, returned, there must have been at least a certain amount, right, a percentage of the people who returned from Jerusalem who are from all the tribes of Israel as well. You understand the implication is there had to be some Israelites there too, right? Not just Judeans. So therefore, we not only have no clear verse saying only the Benjamites and Judans and half of Levi were the leaders, but we have no verse excluding the 10 tribes. And the implication of Rashi Metsudos studying in verse 2 is that whoever left, they returned. And who left? Again, Eliyahu Zuta says explicitly the majority was the 10 tribes who were exiled for the second time. In other words. Fascinating. Any questions before we continue in the just reading the Book of Ezra straight through? Any questions?
Rabbi, I think you answered my question, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, you see, this is from God. God is giving the answers before you can ask the questions. That's
I
uh,
understand. Thank
uh,
you very kindly.
yeah.
I you're
I'm
welcome.
just
Yeah.
trying to concentrate and deliver some of the studies that God shared with me. Okay, very good.
Baruch Hashem.
All right. So okay, so now let's continue. These verses are extremely short. So even though there are many verses in this chapter, it's not that long. This is one of the shortest 70 verse chapters you'll find in scripture. It's similar to some like book in the book of Psalm with very short verses, even though there's a lot. Okay, so let's get started, and I think we'll be able to cover it because there's not much commentary here. I think there was one more comment I wanted to quote. Yes, yes. Okay. So remember last week we here in the Judaica Press and verse 2, there's more commentaries. So last week we discussed, and I'm not sure if we quoted it last week, but I just wanted to make sure I quoted it here. We discussed that when we evaluated whether Zerubbabel and Nehemiah were two different people or one person. I'm not sure if I quoted this, so um, let me quote this because it contradicts the Gemara and Sanhedrin. And remember, I said the Gemara and Sanhedrin, page 38a, must be an allegory because normally when a medrash is quoted as an Agada and a Gemara, it usually is a bit more likely to be literal than just a medrash in a book of midrashim. But when you have a Gemara, so it's more likely to be direct. And of course, so the older midrashim like Medrash Rabbah and Tan Develio, they're written more literal as well than other midrashim. So it's not so simple to just say, oh, it's only a medrash. Some midrashim we actually learn a couple halachos from midrashim. So we have to be careful about disregarding midrashim. So anyway, a medrash recorded in the Talmud, which normally is like the pinnacle of midrashim, in Sanhedrin 38, it has to be allegorical, where it says um, Zerubbabel, his name is Nehemiah ben Chachaliah. Okay, so then, so here at Judaica Press quotes Rabbi Yaakov Emden. So let me read that. This is on page 119 in the Judaica Press, Ezra Chapter 2. Rabbi Jacob Emden, in his notes on Sanhedrin, points out two difficulties with the view that Zerubbabel is Nehemiah. In our verse, both Zerubbabel and Nehemiah are listed with Jeshua between them. In Nehemiah chapter 12, verse 47, we read in the days of Zerubbabel and in the days of Nehemiah. Rambam, in his introduction to Mishnah, lists Zerubbabel and Nehemiah separately, as do several commentators to Avos, including Rabbi Ovadia Bartanura. Support for this contention is Targum Shir Shirim 6.2 and 7.3. So, Rambam, Rabbi Ovadia from Bartanura, Matsudas David, Targum and Shir Shirim, and again, Targum is like a medrash to itself, is also written in the same time. And Targum repeats it twice. All of them say that Nehemiah and Zerubbabel were two different people. So often when you hear somebody quoting the other view, they're always going to quote Sanhedrin 38. But again, I think in this case, because the preponderance of the commentators and other Maimar Chazal, including Targum, so then we have to say it's not a literal Gemara in Sanhedrin 38:8 saying that the name of Zerubbabel is actually Nehemiah, but the Nehemiah of the next book. And okay, so now, in addition, those who argue for a literal interpretation of Sanhedrin 38 try to say that Nehemiah here in verse 2 is not Nehemiah ben Chachaliah. So then which Nehemiah is he, right? Now, again, Rambam and Avadia from Bartanur, or Ben Avadia from Bartanur say explicitly this Nehemiah is Nehemiah ben Chachaliah in their commentaries. So the question is, if you're coming to uproot an assumption, like the simple meaning of the text, wouldn't you give a source that proves it, right? Like if it said Nehemiah ben Yaakov or something, right? It would have been so easy for Ezra to preclude the alternative. The alternative. Otherwise, the only Nehemiah we know of is Nehemiah ben Chachaliah, right? And that we don't know what if he was the very first human ever named Nehemiah. We don't know differently. So, and he was a leader, right? So, is there any other discussion of a leader of Israel called Nehemiah who's not Nehemiah ben Chachaliah? And if you look in the art scroll, can you quote from it? Okay, Linda, can you quote from it?
Where exactly are you asking me to quote? I'll be. I mean, you have covered a lot.
Oh, I had to go quick so we could catch up to your contribution, Lindsay. Okay, let me just confirm it's in the blue edition, and otherwise we'll quote from the Archel Tanakh series.
Blue edition, page.
Okay. Again, I was reading it in the Archel Tanakh series, so let's see if I say that. Yeah, this would probably be page 12.
Okay. Page 12. The
Yeah,
Talmud,
okay.
Sanhedrin 38.
Right, let's go to the bottom paragraph in the parentheses.
The first objection may be countered, however, by assuming that the Nehemiah mentioned here in the Book of Ezra is not the author of the Book of Nehemiah. The second may also.
First of all, let me first comment on that. Okay, so this is an art scroll. I believe was by the Art Scroll Tanakh series author, Rabbi Rabinowitz, Yosef Rabinowitz. He's saying you could work around this first objection by saying Nehemiah here is not the Nehemiah in the Book of Ezra and the author of the Book of Nehemiah, but we have my logical counter argument for this. This is not a proof. It's just you're just saying this is a possible way it would work, but it's not proof. Why? Because we have no other Nehemiah mentioned in that generation but Nehemiah ben Chachaliah. And if there was another great Nehemiah, why not mention his name, right? By Saraya, by Realia, right? You don't have to mention his name because there's no other. And how do we know that this? Because Mordechai, right? Mordechai Bilshan is the Mordechai from the Book of Esther. There was another Mordechai. If this is a different Mordechai, going according to this idea, if this is a different Mordechai, you would have to mention, okay, Mordechai Bilshan, maybe that's a different Mordechai. No, he's actually the same Mordechai as Mordechai in the Book of Esther. So Mordechai is in the Book of Esther, and he's not given a different name. This Bilshan was his nickname, as we could look in the commentary for that. But this is the same Mordechai from the Book of Esther. Okay, so in other words, Mordechai was not given a different name because he's a different Mordechai, right? So too, the same author, Ezra, he did not give Nehemiah a different name because he's the same Nehemiah. You understand my reasoning?
Yes.
Okay, so in my opinion, that yeah, again, this is just how could it work this way? But to me, it doesn't make sense just from the derech kasiva, the way of writing, the author style of Ezra. By Mordechai, he mentioned a anecdote about his name, Bilshan. You know that people gave him that nickname, but it's still the same person. So certainly by somebody who's a completely different Nehemiah, Ezra would have, his writing style would be to mention that it's a different Nehemiah. You understand? So therefore I have to disregard this in my opinion. Okay. Okay. So, okay, please continue to the second.
The second may also be reconciled during the days of Zerubbabel and the days of Nehemiah, may be understood as during the days of Zerubbabel, including the days of Nehemiah, meaning that Nehemiah and Zerubbabel were the same.
In other, so i.e. is like saying here, that is, or in other words. The days
Why
of
would he name
Zerubbabel, in other words,
Zerubbabel and Nehemiah each?
so, but this is like a twist of the tongue. It doesn't make sense to me.
Whew, no
So,
kidding.
you know what I'm saying? Why mention them both? We did not even establish that Zerubbabel and Nehemiah were the same person according to Tanakh, right?
Right.
Implicitly, in fact, according to the reasoning I just gave you, Nehemiah is the same Nehemiah. Otherwise, he would have been given a different name here.
And then Rambam doesn't agree with any of them.
Right.
But
Yeah, I
Rambam,
haven't even gotten to Rambam's confusion.
again, Targum, Rambam, the Rabbeinu Ovadia from Bartanura. In other words, like the Rashi on Mishnah, right? Is not in this issue, as far as I know. But again, the preponderance seems to be that they're two different people. And again, I didn't see this explanation, but to me, it's implicit and perhaps it's obvious to these scholars that this is a more allegorical quotation from the Gada in the Talmud.
Well, this might be a crazy statement, but in chapter 2, verse 2 on page 13, it doesn't list them side by side, or it doesn't have.
No, it puts the high priest between them.
Yeah.
Right. Now, why is that? Why is that?
I don't know.
Because what? Zerubbabel and Nehemiah were the messiahs of their generations, right? Mashiach of the Mashiach L'Dorot.
Okay.
So
As
why
was
would the
Daniel
high
before them.
priest be named between them?
Well, so Daniel, Zerubbabel, and Nehemiah were the three Mashiachs of those generations in a row.
Hi.
Yeshua was the Kohen Gadol.
Yes, but why is he put between them?
Because Zerubbabel was the leader of that generation.
But
Yeshua was the Kohen Gadol of that generation. Nehemiah was the next leader. He was the viceroy.
Okay, so this is why. Okay, so he's listing them in order of rank and authority.
Right now,
and their
exactly
value to the people of Israel.
Now, and there's a discussion on Mordechai Bilshan that Mordechai is listed fifth, and in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 7, he's listed in sixth because he was so busy with the government, he neglected his studies a bit, and he became the sixth greatest sage. But in the time of the Book of Ezra, he was the fifth greatest sage.
I would not even be qualified to sit in the room.
Right now, listen. But so you see, this is a different understanding of leadership and a different understanding of Mashiach. Mashiach is not a guy who has to be the greatest general in the world and have PhDs in political science and whatever. He's a guy who's a great Torah scholar. You understand?
I know, but I still wouldn't qualify to even be in the room with them. Oh my goodness.
You're a woman, Linda.
Not because of that.
So in other words, the way this is written, it makes sense if Nehemiah is the viceroy, right? And what, according to those who say they're two separate people, Zerubbabel and listen, look at the commentaries and our video on the book of Haggai. So in chapter 2, Zerubbabel, we learned all the commentaries there. Zerubbabel was told by Haggai that he could not be Mashiach, right? This is what we learned. So after his 19th year as governor of Judea in the time of Ezra, he gave up his political power to go back to the base medrash and increase Torah study, so that his future progeny Mashiach should have a greater spiritual help from his forefathers. So that's a sign of the greatness of Zerubbabel, is that he gave up political power for the sake of the base medrash, to learn more Torah, to give more spirituality to Mashiach. And he took his son with him, who is no longer, maybe an alternate to Nehemiah, because he took him out of Israel. So therefore, Nehemiah became the default to be the next leader from the tribe of Judah. Fascinating. So you see what I'm saying? The implicit understanding of the verse 2 supports everything we spoke about from the perspective of these are two separate people. Any questions or comments? Okay, so now let's look at the Talmudic quote on why was Mordechai from the Book of Esther called Bilshan. Okay, this on page 13, Linda.
This was Mordecai ben Yair, Esther 2:5, cousin of Queen Esther and Jewish leader during the events of Purim, Megillah 16b.
Okay, pause there. Yeah, so Mordechai ben Yair is Mordechai Bilshan. Okay, so in other words, Ezra is changing his name, and he's the same person. So how much more so would Ezra change his name if he's a different person, right?
Right.
You understand my logic? Okay. Now let's go to skip. There's a lot here, a lot of commentary on this verse, but let's skip to the second column. Bilshan.
Bilsham, the Talmud.
Yeah.
Menachos 65. Menachos 65a states that Bilsham was a supplementary name for Mordecai, denoting his mastery of language. Bilshan is a contraction of the words, I can't read those Hebrew words, he mixed languages. Mordecai would understand the most cryptic remarks through word comparisons and associations. The rabbis cite several instances of halakha decisions that hinged upon the interpretation of obscure statements. With his genius for word linkage, Mordecai was able to uncover their true meaning. Mordecai was also called
Pesachia,
to open or unlock, because he, quote, unlocked words, unquote, i.e., he was expert in the art of comparing and extrapolating meanings in all of the 70 languages. Mishnah Shekalim 5:1. Others suggest that Bilsham is simply the name of another person, Ibn Ezra Malbim.
Now listen. Okay, Ibn Ezra and Malbim are, I believe, both hold that Zerubbabel and Nehemiah are the same person. Okay, so now it's undermining their opinion to hold this way, in my opinion, because here Mordechai, in their opinion, is a different person. So Ezra does say a different name because he's a different person. But they say Nehemiah, who Ezra does not say is a different person, is a different person, when Ezra didn't say he's a different person. You understand? Their argument crumbles their own position. So in other words, if not for the fact that the Gemara says it, I wouldn't even really take it seriously, based on, I don't know how, maybe Malvin was just quoting the Rishon, but obviously there must be some logic behind it, right? And some imperative they feel they have to quote that Talmud as a literal statement. But again,
this statement couldn't have been shoved in there by some stupid person when he was deciding he wanted to approve the Jewish printing just to cause trouble.
Right. So if somebody in the generation of Ibn Ezra who lived after the time of Rashi, someone after the time of Rashi changed the Jewish writings to try to cause trouble for them.
Right.
And that is
That's
a
what my
copy Ibn
thinking
Ezra
is.
quoted, and Malbim quotes Ibn Ezra because he was a previous scholar, and he used that relied on his version of the Talmud, but the Talmud was a mistake.
Well, what I think is
Or it was
interesting that
simply
Mordecai spoke 70 languages.
right, and what's fascinating, he was the fifth greatest scholar.
Yeah, he spoke 70 languages. Holy cannolis. See, Teresa,
That's why
it's
they
not because
called
I'm a
the
woman, it's because I don't got enough brains. Just sit and
no
hold me.
quick go and learn 69 more languages quick.
Hi.
Quick, hurry. Okay, so no,
No, the
yeah,
2 or 3
yeah.
I know are enough right now, and I'm struggling with rest. Hi.
So the fifth greatest scholar knew 70 languages. Mordecai was fighting for the sake of Israel to protect them from danger, and because of he was constantly worried about the potential danger to Jewish people. Therefore, he laxed a bit in his scholarship and became the sixth greatest scholar. And the sages of the Talmud criticized that. Now they have a very important
Ridiculous.
criticism of
They
it.
can't even speak
No,
70
no, it's
languages.
not. No, but it's not ridiculous. When if you hear their argument, and I hope we could quote that, it's very powerful what they said.
Wow.
But
For the
I saw
sake
it
of
in
the
English in one of
people.
these books. Let me try to
Wow,
find that.
wow, wow, wow.
I hate to
Now you gotta defend
interrupt.
yourself.
I hate
You
to
just made
interrupt
yourself look
this
bad.
debate.
Sorry.
Wait, you have a question mark?
Yes, I do. And it's pretty basic, but it's something that was never defined. Okay, is that from the way I was brought up is that Ezra was a woman and not a
What?
man.
No offense, but what?
I, that is from uh, my Nakri teachings, and I never understood that until now. So please forgive me. It's something that was never ever. It was always never explained. Please excuse me.
No problem, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay. So now, again, when you're reading multiple verses, multiple editions, while you're having brain fog, it's entirely possible. You may not remember where everything is, but if Hashem wants this answered tonight, we'll get to it. Let me try to.
Well, the fact that
Let's see.
Mordecai understood 70 language so well that he would do, even to a greater extent, able to exchange the languages in from the Halakha. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Okay, so there is this story of the story of Mordecai being criticized because he lost Torah knowledge because he was busy in the capital with trying to prevent the next Haman from rising, right? So they said he was not criticized when he was working to help save the lives of the Jewish people. But once Haman was destroyed and the decree was nullified, at that point, it's time to celebrate and go back to be the great scholar of the generation. That's why God made him so wise to help the entire generation with Torah. But instead, he stayed in the palace in case a new Haman arose. Again, with the at that time, the Achashverosh was corrupt. So now,
The
if he
unstable.
if right, and now Achashverosh, though he passed away within 3 years after the Purim story. So at that point, so why didn't he just let Esther be the main influence for the young Darius to continue building the temple. Well, because the problem was that he was a young boy, and they would have appointed another prime minister instead of the queen. The queen had powers, but she didn't automatically become king. It was still a male-centric Persian Empire, right? So therefore, they would have appointed another prime minister, and who knows who it could have been. The last prime minister before Mordechai was Haman, you know. So it was, but maybe he could have personally selected the next prime minister. So that's the problem. He could have personally selected the next prime minister, and the queen mother Esther could have given her blessing to whoever Mordechai chose, right? So in other words, he had the capacity to go back to being the great specialist scholar in language to help the men of the Great Assembly. Remember, the men of the Great Assembly were the foundation of the Talmud. It was the same generation that had Talmudic scholars and prophets working side by side to establish the principles of oral Torah that other generations could not change without referring back to it. So this eventually was written down in the generation of Rabbi Judah the Prince, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. But it was formulated in Talmudic style in these days of Ezra and Mordechai. So during this great project to preserve the spiritual life of Israel, Mordechai continued to be concerned about the physical safety of Israel at a time when he could have appointed someone else to do it and go back to his specialty. God made him an incredible linguist, knowing 70 languages and an expert in them, in their hidden secrets of each of the languages, right? So now I think it's easier to understand the Talmudic perspective. They were trying to establish the oral Torah to survive the long exiles that were coming. There was the age of prophecy. They knew there was going to be over 1,000 years of exile, making the oral Torah into a easily rememberable system, which later became the Mishnah, was spiritually vital for the Jewish people. Once the physical danger was away, so then Mordechai should have gone back to sharing his wellspring of knowledge. I mean, nowadays he could have just put out a few YouTube videos, but back then he was either in the palace in Persia or he was in the capital in Jerusalem. One or the other. See what I'm saying? So the sages of the Talmud have a point, and there was a great phrase that came out of that, that learning Torah is greater than saving a life. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean we know that the imperative to violate even the holy Sabbath is greater than is to save a life is greater than the other laws of the Shabbos. So pikuach navish dochas Shabbos, danger to life nullifies the laws of Shabbos for that moment. For that moment, there's no consideration of the laws of Shabbos. Just save the life in the most efficient way possible without worry if it's going to violate the Sabbath. So we see that the danger to life is the most primal commandment of Shabbos. So therefore, how can Mordechai be criticized? Because there was no more immediate danger, and because he was in a position with Esther's power to appoint a successor, and therefore he could have shared the knowledge God gave him. Right? Sometimes as a person gets older, their wisdom becomes even more purified and more stronger. So therefore, Mordechai was denying the people for the sake of a good cause, but not the best cause. Like somebody says they want to save dolphins, and meanwhile there's a bunch of local animals that are about to be killed in the animal shelter. They should first try to save the local animals from suffering first before they save the whales, right? So if you want to do both, you can do both. But the point is, we don't ignore the bigger mitzvah before us. For Mordechai, the master linguist and brilliant scholar and prophet, he needed to now be more proactive in the men of the Great Assembly, even though he helped found them in the first generation. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so therefore, when the sages say, it's important to, when you hear a quote from the Talmud, you understand the context. The context is, when is learning Torah greater than saving a life? Only when there's no immediate threat to life. But just to be on guard constantly, for example, if there's a lifeguard in a study hall near a beach and he hears somebody's drowning, he should interrupt the studies and save them. But it doesn't mean that he should spend more hours as a lifeguard on the beach away from the Torah study, right? See what I'm saying? So if there's immediate danger to life, that pushes aside even the Holy Sabbath. But if there's no immediate danger to life and the person is a quintessential scholar on the level that the entire generation, future generations depend on him, like Mordechai was, so therefore it's a disservice to the incredible person that God made. And that's what Mordechai was. He was on such a level. So we learn from him the Talmudic statement, from his mistake, Torah study is greater than saving a life. But again, what's the context? If it's not an immediate saving of life, like for example, to become a doctor, so maybe you could save a life eventually, right? If somebody is a great scholar like Mordechai and Ezra, they should first become a great scholar of Torah, help the generation, and then also do the medical field on the side, like Rambam was able to do both, so these those great scholars were able to do multitask at that high level. Okay, understood? Okay. Okay, so just one more thing, quote from Rav Schwab on Ezra and Nehemiah. So in chapter 2, verse 2, um, the people mentioned here were according to family, not according to tribes. Why was that? Because they were extraordinarily selfless in their desire to dwell in the Holy Land. Bottom of page 15 in Rav Schwab and Ezra. They sacrificed their quite comfortable lives in what became the Persian Empire under the benevolent King Koresh, that's Cyrus, for the ideal of living in Eretz Yisrael, in the proximity of the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple. Under Koresh's government, the Jews were respected and highly regarded, and became very wealthy. Their return to the poor, ruined, and desolate Eretz Yisrael was therefore an act of mesirus nefesh, self-sacrifice of the highest order. This was especially remarkable because they knew that in Eretz Yisrael they would be in danger from enemies such as the Kusim and the Shomronim. That's the Kuthites and the Samaritans. The names of these pioneering and courageous families are therefore inscribed here to be forever honored. Rav Schwab on Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay, so let's read their names, okay? Well, at least get started. Torah is so beautiful. Look how long it's taking us to just get through a chapter or two. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to do Hebrew, and Teresa, you'll do English. Sounds good?
Sounds
Still
good.
up for it?
Mm-hmm.
The coffee didn't wear off? Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
If I embarrass you, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
So you defended Chazal well, so they understood?
Yeah.
So they understood because after the danger, not when it was in danger.
But
Okay. Now they know,
yeah,
because Chazal has a reason why.
yeah, exactly. But
We have to
also,
question it also.
right? My son, yeah, he reminded me I have to defend Chazal now that I when I said that they criticized Mordechai. So hopefully I did.
Mordechai is a hero, true hero.
Yeah, Mordechai is a true hero, indeed. And he continued to sacrifice his personal life for the sake of service to others of the highest order. But what was his mission?
What's the criticism?
In Hebrew, that would be called tafkid. What was his special mission in life?
Yeah.
his special mission in his life is once he used his special wisdom to undermine Haman. Now was his time to get back to be aiding the future scholars and the scholars which were establishing. And again, the oral Torah in those days was not written down, so they had to create like poems, which eventually became the Mishnah,
Really?
to
So
remember
really introduction to
to
this.
remember the oral Torah even in times of persecution. You understand? Okay. Chapter 2, verse 3 and following in the Hebrew. B'nai Farosh, Alpaim Mea Shivim Shnoim. B'nai Shefatia, Shlosh Meos Shivim Shnoim. B'nai B'nai Orach, Sheva Meos Chamisha V'Shivim. Again, these families are the heroic families who gave up their wealth, and in other words, wealth that would be growing. Perhaps they were able to bring any flocks they acquired or whatever, but they were extremely successful in the Persian Empire, and they gave up that source of revenue for the sake of being spiritual pioneers during the Second Temple Commonwealth. Okay, please translate verses 3 through 5.
The children of Parosh, 2,172. The children of Shaphatai,
372.
372. The children of Arah, 775. The children of the governor of
well, yeah. Let me go back to the Hebrew. Okay, so now we're going to verse of Vav. That's 6 in the Hebrew. B'nai Fachas Moav Livnei Yeshua Yoav Alpayim Shmona Meos Ushneim Asar B'nai Elam Elef Masayim Chamisha Varba B'nai Zatu Tisha Meos Varbaim Vachamisha. Okay, please translate verses 6, 7, and 8.
the children of the governor of Moab, the children of Yeshu and Joab, 2,820. The children of Elam, 1,254. The children of Zato, 945.
Okay, let me go back to the Hebrew. B'nai Zakai Shiva Meos V'Shishim. B'nai Vani Sheish Meos Arbaim Ushnoim. B'nai Vevoi Sheish Meos Esrim Ushlosha. B'nai Azgad Elef Masayim Esrim Ushnoim. B'nai Adon Nikam Sheish Meos Shishim V'Shisha. B'nai Vigvai Alpaim Chamishim V'Shisha. Bnei Adin, Arba Meos Chamishim Varba. Bnei Ater, the Chizkiah, Tishim Ushimona. Bnei Veitzoi, Shlosh Meos Esrim Ushlosha. Bnei Yora, Mea Ushnoim, Ushneim Asar. Bnei Chashum, Masayim Esrim Ushlosha. Bnei Gibar, Tishim Vachamisha. Bnei Veis Lachem, Mea Esrim Ushlosha. Okay, please translate verses 8 through verse 21. 8 up to and including 21.
Okay. The children of Zatu, 945. The children of, that was 8, sorry. Zakah, 760. The children of Bani, 642. The children of Bebai, 623. The children of Azgad, 1,222. The children of Adonikum, 666. The children of Bagai, 2,056. The children of Adin, 454. The children of Ater of Hezekiah, 98. the children of Bezah, 323, the children of Jorah, or Horah, 120,
112.
112. The children of Hashum, 223. The children of Gibbar, 95. The people of Bethlehem, 123.
Okay, pause there. Okay, now I'm going to read back in the Hebrew, starting from verse 22. Anshe Natofa, Chamishim V'Shishim, Anshe Nasos, Mea Esrim Ushmona, Bnei Azmavis, Arbayim Ushnoim, Bnei Kiryas Arim, Kafira Uve'eros, Shiva Meos Varbayim, Ushlosha, Bnei Harama, Bugava, Sheish Meos Esrim Echad, Anshe Michmash, Mea Esrim Ushnoim, Anshe Veis El, Va'ai, Masayim Esrim Ushalosha, Bnei Nevo, Hamishim Ushnoim, Bnei Magbish, Mea Hamishim Vishishim, Vishisha, Bnei Elam, Acher, Elef Masayim Hamishim Varboim, Bnei Harim, Shlosh Meos Vesrim, Bnei Lod, Chadid, Vono, Shiva Meos Esrim Vachamisha, Bnei Yerecho, Shlosh Meos Arboim Vachamisha, Bnei Sinaa, Shloshes Alafim, V'Sheish Meos Shloshim. Okay, please translate through verse 35, 22 through 35.
The people of Netapha, 56. The people of Anathoth, 128. The people of Azmavah, 42. The people of Kirath Arim, Haftarah, and Beeroth, 743. The people of Ramah and Gibah, 621. The people of Michmash, 122. The people of Bethel and Ari, or I, 223. The people of Nabor, 52. The people of Magbish, 156. The people of a different Elam, 1,254. The people of Harim, 320. The people of Lod, Habid, and Onan, 725. The people of Jericho, 345. The people of Sinaa, 3,630.
Very good. Okay, so we're already covered 35 verses, 33 the verses since we started to go through these short verses. If you still have a little energy, let's continue and try to finish the whole chapter today, because it's not much more commentary we have to cover for the rest of the chapter. But every one of these people was a pioneer. They were on a higher spiritual level than even many people who are pioneers of the modern state of Israel, because they were not leaving hardship to go there. They were leaving economic success. And there have been many people who in the modern state of Israel who gave up their lives outside of Israel, that they had more money and they gave that up for altruistic reasons. But probably in the time of Mashiach, it's going to become financially easier for people to make Aliyah, to go to the Holy Land. When it wasn't, so then it was a special notation in the Tanakh. Tanakh gave a whole chapter dedicated to people who gave up their riches to make Aliyah. So therefore, implicitly, it's a good idea to not rely on people having to give up their riches. You don't expect everyone to be such a saint. when it comes to these matters, because sometimes riches involve, for example, they're giving charity now. Maybe they're feeding 100 people through their charity, and they're supposed to give that up. It's not such a simple. It's not so simple. Now, the main thing is to do mitzvahs, whether you're in Israel or outside of the land of Israel. So, how do you serve God by not serving God as much, right? So you have to calculate it, right? Mordechai, didn't want to give up one mitzvah for the other mitzvah, but the reality was, objectively, he was no longer obligated, and therefore no longer had the imperative to stay outside of the study hall. In a generation, they were forming the oral Torah into easily remembered poems, etc. So too, when a person has to give up their riches, they have to make sure. Now, it's extremely possible somebody who's actually rich, if they have a factory in America, they could just make a factory in Israel, for example. You see what I'm saying? But people have to have the mindset. Look at these people in chapter 2 of Ezra. They were willing to give up riches for it, even if I have. So if I have to take a reduction in my income to go to Israel, maybe it's something I could consider, especially if I want to be very righteous before God. So there's no mention here how very pious they were in anything else, but they were willing to give up money for the sake of God's command to be in the Holy Land and the 26 commandments that are connected to that. So therefore, it was a great honor to God, even if they were not the most pious people in the world. So again, the Tanakh teaches us through the commandments we show love and reverence for heaven. Read Psalm 119, for example, and these people were great pioneers of that, and they're an example for all history, and therefore an entire long chapter in Tanakh is dedicated to their names. Very special. So remember, coming up in verse 43, even Gibeonites, right, who were not joining the Jewish people under the best circumstances, right? They lied to Joshua. Nevertheless, they were among the people who sacrificed their wealth to come to Israel in those days. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 36 in the Hebrew. Hakohanim b'nei Yedaya, leves Yeshua Tasha Meos Shivim Ushalosha, b'nei Emer Elef Chamishim Ushnoim, b'nei Fashhur Elef Masayim Arboim V'Shiva, b'nei Charim Elef V'Shiva Asar. Halavim b'nei Yeshua v'Kadmiel, b'nei Livnei Hodavia Shivim Varba, Hashomerim b'nei Asaf Mea Esrim Ushmona, b'nei Hashoarim b'nei Shalom b'nei Ater b'nei Talmon b'nei Akuv b'nei Chatita b'nei Shovoi Hakol Mea Shloshim V'Sisha, Hanasinim b'nei Sicha b'nei Chasufa b'nei Tabos b'nei Karmos b'nei Karos b'nei Siaha b'nei Fadon. Okay, please translate verses 36 through 44.
The Kohanim, the children of Jediah, thank you. The house of Yeshua, 973. The children of Immer, 1052. The children of Bashur, 1247. The children of Harim, 1017. The Levites, the children of Yeshua and Kidmiel, the children of Hodava, 74. The singers, the children of Asaph, 128. The children of the
That's the Asaph from the Book of Psalms. Asaph from the Book of Psalms.
Yes. The children of the gatekeepers, the children of Shalim, the children of Ater, the children of Talmon, the children of Akkab, the children of Hatita, the children of Shabal, altogether 139. The Nethinim, the children of Zahah, the children of Hasufa, the children of Tabaoth, the children of Kuros, the children of Sihah, the children of Padam.
And again, the Nethinim are the Gibeonites. So it's very, very powerful. That remember, Gibeonites were one of the 31 kingdoms of the Canaanites who were slated for destruction if they didn't repent or go into exile. The Hittites and the Girgashites went into exile, and they were spared. The Gibeonites were the only nation that repented, but they repented at first by trying to deceive the Hebrews. Nevertheless, they ended up, because of their repentance of the forefathers, they ended up being such amazing people that they were among these great pioneers of historic level who gave up wealth for the sake of being in a new commonwealth in Judea when it was a time of great physical danger. Amazing. So it's amazing God can make righteousness blossom even when people start out with deception. You know. God knows how to do good. Like in this week's Torah portion, Joseph said to the brothers, you intended for evil, but God intended for good. So that God does it all the time. Even for the Gibeonites, God did that. Beautiful. Okay, so again, so just consider this historically, just to understand what was going on here. Remember, the Gibeonites were also from the children of Ham, right? Therefore, they were African. So you had a segment of Africans living with the Jewish people since the days of Joshua. They went into exile and they returned for the second Commonwealth. So, in other words, there was always Africans among the Jewish people since the days of Joshua. Fascinating. So, as you can imagine, the Torah is not doesn't allow for racism like that, you know. And God doesn't play favorites. You know, I mentioned before, over 50 chapters in Tanakh, God sends a prophet to criticize Israel. God is not playing favorites with Israel. It's just they're held to a higher standard because they're supposed to be, special. You know, and we illustrated previously, when God does criticize, it's because a nation has the potential for repentance. That's why you see wicked nations, they just were given maybe one chance. The Sodomites from Sodom, they didn't take their chance very well. They tried to hurt Lot and his guests, and they killed one of his daughters. Medrash tells us. The Nineveh did take the warning, but the next generation after they were saved by Jonah, then they became the foundation for Nebuchadnezzar's evil reign that destroyed Judea. So, but the Gibeonites, to their credit, we see all these generations after Joshua, they're still Gibeonites trying to serve God, hundreds and hundreds of years later. Okay, we left off in verse 44, correct? Now verse 45. B'nai Levana, B'nai Chagava, B'nai Akuv, B'nai Chagav, B'nai Shalmai, B'nai Hanan, B'nai Gidel, B'nai Gachar, B'nai Ra'aya, B'nai Ritzin, B'nai Nokta, B'nai Gazam, B'nai Uza, B'nai Paseach, B'nai Vesor, B'nai Vesoi, B'nai Asna, B'nai Ma'unim, B'nai Nefusim, B'nai Vakbuk, B'nai Chakufa, B'nai Chagur, B'nai Charhur, B'nai Vatzlus, B'nai Mechida, B'nai Harsha, B'nai Varkos, B'nai Sisra, B'nai Samach, B'nai Netziach, B'nai Chatifa, B'nai Avdei Shlomo, B'nai Sotai, B'nai Asopheres, B'nai Feruza, B'nai Yala, B'nai Darkon, B'nai Gidel, B'nai Shefatia, B'nai Chatil, B'nai Peres, Tzavayim, B'nai Ami, Kol Hanasinim, U'B'nai Avdei Shlomo, Shlosh Meos Tishim U'Shnayim. Please translate through verse 58. That's 45 through 58.
The children of Laban, the children of Hagabah, the children of Kab, the children of Hagab, the children of Samai, the children of Hanan, the children of Gidel, the children of Gahar, the children of Reina, the children of Rezin, the children of Nikoda, the children of Gazam, the children of Uzzah, the children of Pasak, the children of Basai, the children of Ashna, the children of Unim, the children of Naphusim, the children of Bakbuk, the children of Hakupa, the children of Hahar, the children of Bazluth, the children of Mehidah, the children of Harsha, the children of Barkus, the children of Syria, the children of Tamar, the children of Naziah, the children of Natapha, the children of Solomon's slaves, the children of Soti, the children of Hasophereth, the children of Peruda, the children of Ja'ala, the children of Darkon, the children of Gedel, the children of Sephatana, the children of Hatal, the children of Paka'ira, Saban, the children of Amai, the children of Nathanim, the children of Solomon's slaves numbered 392.
Very good. Okay, so now, Linda, you still there? Yeah,
Yes,
verse
sir.
58. If you could read verse 58 in the blue edition.
Verse 58 in the blue edition. Yes, sir. All of the Nethinim and the children of Solomon's slaves. These two groups are listed together among the returning exiles because they shared a common descent from the heathen peoples who inhabited ancient Palestine. The original Nethinim were members of the Hivite nation,
The
Joshua
Gibeonites,
9,
right?
Hivites, Joshua 9:7, and King Solomon, 1 Kings 9:20 through 21, took his slaves from the Amorites, Hittites, Pezerites, Hivites, and Jebusites who remained in the land, Ralbag and Malbim.
So fascinating. So uh it's more complicated than we think. We're assuming there was just um complete destruction of nations that were who the Canaanites, but there was plenty of mercy. And remember, the the old slavery is not the new slavery. The African slave trade, of course, was evil, but the slaves in those days, they were given a comfortable bed, etc., and they actually became converts to Judaism when they were released from their slavery. So all of these evil nations, King Solomon took survivors from them and turned them into forefathers of Jewish people.
He took the sparks out of the nations. That's what
Exactly,
Jewish people are supposed to do.
exactly. So King Solomon was a very holy person on an individual level. As a king, he wasn't perfect, but as a righteous man, of course, he was a prophet of God, having two prophecies in the Book of Kings, and as well as contributing three books to the Tanakh. So, a very righteous man. He's underrated because Jeremiah did say he wasn't perfect as a king, so people get the wrong impression. He was actually one of the great righteous people. And if you look in the in the Ushpizin, right, when the seven righteous people who are invited, their spirits are invited to the sukkah, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moshe, Aaron, and David. So some people take out Joseph and replace him with King Solomon. So from that perspective, he is in the top 10 of righteous people in history. King Solomon, extremely underrated again because he's publicly criticized by the prophet Jeremiah, and understandably why. But you have to really understand him to understand that on a personal level he was extremely holy. Okay. But so it's just amazing that so it was just a natural consequence. There are many segments of interracial concepts. It's not about nowadays the silliness about being woke. It's it was just a natural consequence. Of course, there's interracial concepts. There's unity. It's all about spiritual. People are spiritual. It doesn't matter where they came from. That's the whole of it. And according to most opinions, Judah, the son of Jacob, the forefather of the royal tribe, his first wife was Canaanites, literally a Canaanite. His first wife was African, and his one of his three sons survived from her. So therefore, 1/3 of the royal tribe of Judah are of partial African descent. So there's no such thing as racism in the Tanakh. Whoever does that, they haven't really studied Tanakh in depth, obviously. But it's not something you destroy people over, because they're racist or this or that. It's just simply not accepted. It's not normal to be racist. So if God chose Judah as the royal tribe, why would he do that if it's the only known interracial tribe? You know what I'm saying? And part of it. Okay, so let's go to verse 59. Let me try to read through the end of the chapter. commentaries are starting to get longer here on the end of the chapter, but let me at least read all the verses through the end of the chapter. Starting in verse 59. Vela ha'oli mitel melach tel harsha karuv adan imer v'lo yachlu lahagid beis avosam v'zaram im mi'Yisraelhem b'nei Delaya b'nei Tovia b'nei Nekoda sheish meos chamishim ushnayim umi b'nei hakonim b'nei Chavaya b'nei Hakotz b'nei Barzilai asher lakach mi b'nos Barzilai Hagiladi, Isha Vaikare al Shemam. Ela Bikshu Chesavam, Hamis Yachsin, Velonim Tsa'u, Vayago Alu Min Hakuna. Veomer Hatir Shasa, Lahem Asher Lo Yochlu Mikodesh HaKadashim Ad Amod Kohen Laurim Ulusumim. Kol Kahal Kechad Arba Ribo Alpayim Shlosh Meos Shishim Milvad Avdehem Ram Hosehem Ela Shivas Alafim Shlosh Meos Shloshim Shiva Wilhem Meshorim Umeshoros Mosayim Susehem Shva Meos Shloshim Shisha Pir Dehem Mosayim Arbaim Vachamisha Gemalehem Arba Meos Shloshim Vachamisha Chamorim Sheshes Alafim Shiva Meos Vesrim Umerashe Ha'avos Bevoam Leves Adonai Asher B'Yerushalayim Hisnadvu Leves Ha'Elohim Lahamido Al Mechono Kechocham Nasnu Laotsar Hamalacha Zav Dar Kumonim Sheish Ribos Va'elef Chesef Manim Chameshes Alafim V'chosnos Kohanim Mea Vayishva Kohanim V'alvim Umin Ha'am V'Mashovarim V'Shoarim V'Nesinim Ba'Rehem V'Chol Yisrael Ba'Rehem. Okay, please translate verses 59 through 70.
These are the ones who went up from Tal Melech, to Harsha, Cherub, Adon, and Emir, and could not declare their fathers' families and their descendants, whether they were from Israel, the children of Delilah, the children of Tobah, the children of Nikodah, 652. Of the children of the Kohanim, the children of Haba'ah, the children of Hakaz, and the children of Barzillah, who took wives from the daughters of Barzillah of Gilead, and were called by their names. These sought their genealogical records, but they could not find, so they were disqualified from the priesthood. Hatarsha'ath told them that they should not eat of the most holy offerings until they would arise a Cohen to inquire of the Urim and the Tumim. The entire congregation together number 42,260, besides their male slaves and female slaves, of which there were 7,337. They also had 200 male singers and female singers. Their horses numbered 736, their mules 265, their camels
45.
45, their camels 435, their donkeys 6,770.
20.
Oh my goodness, excuse me. 20. 6,720. 720. Some of the heads of the families, when they came to the site of the temple of Hashem that is in Jerusalem, made contributions to the temple of God to establish it on its foundation. They gave according to their means to the work fund of gold 61,000 darkamas of
Documents or drachmas.
Of silver, 5,000 manes, and 100 priestly tunics. The Kohanim and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the gatekeepers and the Nethinims settled in their cities, and all of Israel in their cities.
Okay, so in this reading, there's 3 verses I want to call attention to. Let's go back to verse 62. They sought from their genealogical records, but they could not be found, so they were disqualified from the priesthood. So here is scriptural indication about the Talmudic philosophy, about again, Talmudic philosophy is the philosophy of the men of the Great Assembly, which is the philosophy of Mordechai, Ezra, and the prophets of Israel. So just as the priests, we know they're descended from Aaron, but maybe they're not descended in the most best way for the priests, because the priests have the special laws in the book of Leviticus. They don't follow all the laws correctly, so they could be disqualified from being a priest. So just like they are disqualified being a priest, but they're still, complete Jews, so too the 10 tribes could be disqualified from being Jewish. We see that we get disconnected. But again, a Ger Tzedek, a convert to Judaism, is considered completely Jewish. A complete member of the covenant from Sinai. Right. So that is not relevant. The only question is, what happens when the territories are given out? So it's reasonable to assume, if in the case of somebody who is genealogically descended from the 10 tribes, like from Africa or India or China, the 10 tribes, when they're given their own land, are going to want these people to join them, right? The remnant of the 10 tribes among the Jews today are going to want all these people to join them back in their territories. They're not going to want them to be away from them. They want their old tribes reunited, right? So it makes sense in these cases. It's an exception to the rule, but there's a general rule that all Gerim, generally speaking, whether it's converts to Judaism or like Ger Toshav, Ben Noach, all Gerim in the Holy Land are probably going to end up in the 13th territory mentioned in Ezekiel 48, which is the territory of the prince. So those who give up their lifestyles to cling to the God of Israel will be the very closest ones to Mashiach when he comes. So they'll be welcome to live in the same territory, same state with Mashiach. Okay, verse 63. Hartir Shaf. It's hard to read the English. Let me read the Hebrew, which is Aramaic. Hatir Shasa, Hatir Shasa, Hatir Shatha, in the English. So the commentary quotes here. Can you read the first sentence, Linda? Hatir Shasa.
Yes, I can.
Rashi?
The first reason.
Verse 63.
Yes, Hartasha. Rashi identifies Hartasha as Nehemiah.
Okay, yeah.
See,
Okay, pause there.
Nehemiah 8,
Yeah.
9.
So yeah, pause there. Okay. So Hartashasa is Nehemiah's name given by, the Babylonian and Persian emperors had this unusual custom. They always had to rename people. It's like they're not exactly respecting other nations if they always rename people who work for them. But nevertheless, at least their Koresh and Darius, so the Persian, were very uh, advanced for their day. Okay, but so what does this do? Let's go back to something we discussed in the first class, right? What did we discuss in the first class? Another Aramaic name, Sheish. Remember that one? Sheish Batzar. We discussed there was a discussion, was Sheish Batzar Daniel or someone else?
Zerubbabel.
Correct. And remember, according to one reading, there's an opinion Zerubbabel is who? Nehemiah. And then here, so Rashi identifies Nehemiah as Hatir Shasa. So, in other words, going according to all these opinions that we rejected, I personally rejected in our studies the past 2 weeks, that Nehemiah is Zerubbabel, is Daniel, whatever, what I'm saying, Sheish Batzar. So it lends support to the fact that Sheish Batzar was somebody different than Nehemiah, right? So at least Hatir Shasa is probably Nash Beis Shatzar. So those who hold that Beis Shatzar is Zerubbabel, it would be hard for them to explain that he is Nehemiah, because Nehemiah already has an Aramaic name, right? You know what I'm saying? He already has a Chaldean name. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So this verse is only backing up what the opinions that I followed, and the opinions I followed are just I basically just mentioned the majority view of the sages who comment on Tanakh. So this tells us that the sages who are commenting on Tanakh, the classic sages, Rashi, Matsudos, Radak, Malbim, they're a treasure, because if you don't go to all of these details that we studied in the class tonight, I mean, how many people can understand these things if not for the hard work that all these commentaries went through? So it's amazing. But I think this just lends greater support to all the turns that I took to say Nehemiah is separate from Zerubbabel, uh, and and Zerubbabel is separate from Sheshbatzar, who must be Daniel, because Sheshbatzar is Prince of Judah. Okay, very good. Okay, so now one more verse in this chapter I wanted to mention. Oh no, so first finish up in 63. So until inquire of the Urim Batumim, and if you look in the commentaries, they discuss the Urim Batumim was expected to only return in the time of Mashiach. So in other words, Nehemiah told them they should not eat of those holy offerings until Mashiach comes. So so in other words, Nehemiah was telling the people that he didn't, and he's one of the great scholars, obviously, right? So it was his opinion that there would be no renewal of the sacrifices in complete fulfillment of the most holy offerings, right? They would not have the full sacrifice and eat the remnant of it until Mashiach comes. And again, Zerubbabel received the prophecy from Haggai that Mashiach was not coming in that generation or in the next generation. And according to those who say Nehemiah was the next generation, so Mashiach was not coming in his generation either. So Nehemiah was basically saying you have to wait at least until the next generation, but you have to wait until Mashiach comes. Okay, and again, there's lots of commentaries on this. You could feel free to study that more. That's again chapter 2, verse 63 in Ezra. And then finally in verse 70. So if you could read that verse again, Teresa.
Um, the Kohanim and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the gatekeepers and the Nethin, oh, settled in their cities and all the land and all of Israel in their cities.
Okay, and look in the in the grammar, there's a semicolon there, and all of Israel in their cities. And the Hebrew, also the trop, the cantillation is also a semicolon in there. So Chol Yisrael here is talking about all the tribes of Israel. Remember last time in book of we showed earlier at the start of the class tonight when Ezra wrote in the book of Chronicles, all Israel, he's referring to all the tribes of Israel, at the very least to the 10 tribes. So Chol Yisrael here means at least a reference to the 10 tribes, at the least. Or it's referring to everyone else in Israel among the returnees. But it says V'chol Yisrael, all Israel. It doesn't say V'chol Israel, and then mention which tribes. In every member of the 12 tribes was represented, and I think we studied enough to prove it, even here in the book of Ezra. Again, the book of Ezra, starting in chapter 1, verse 5, it starts to say only Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So, it's like at a very surface level reading, you start to think, okay, only those tribes went back to the Holy Land, and the 10 tribes were lost. But based on everything we learned here, I think we say conclusively all 12 tribes are currently with the Jews today. It's just the at least 75% of that, the original 10 tribes are in the lost lands. Okay, so Baruch Hashem. So we want them back in the Jewish people, but you have to understand God is fulfilling his promise to Jacob that all 12 tribes would survive. And we don't have to wait for Mashiach to have the other tribes with us. They're already with us. In addition, we also taught previously that and it's based on the prophecy of Obadiah. Let's just go there to close the class out for tonight. Okay, in the 12 prophets, the book of Obadiah. I'll go to the Stone Edition Tanakh and read you the page number. Okay, that's on page 1370, 1371 in the Stone Edition Tanakh. In verse 20. V'golos echil hazeh livnei Yisrael asher Kanaanim ad Tsarfas v'galus Yerushalayim asher b'Sefarad Yershu es Orei HaNegev. V'lemoshim b'hartzion lishpot es harisa v'yisa l'Adonai HaMalucha. Okay, please read verses 20 and 21, Teresa.
Oh, sorry.
Obadiah, page 1371 in the Stone Tanakh.
1371. And what verse?
20 and 21.
These exile host of the children of Israel who are among the Canaanites and until Zarephath, and the exile of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, will inherit the cities of the south, and saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esau, and the kingdom will be Hashem's.
Now this occurred in the generation when Elijah was a revealed prophet, and in the generation of King Ahab. Okay, and in other words, it's before the exile of even the 10 tribes, not just the Judeans. And it talks about they'll be exiled and return. Okay, and then it says the host of the children, this exiled host of the children of Israel, who are among the Canaanites until Zarephath. They're among the Canaanites, in other words, the land of Canaanites, until Zarephath. What's Zarephath? In the Hebrew, Tsarfas, which is modern Hebrew name of France. And the exile of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, the Sephardi Jews who went to Sfard, which is the modern Hebrew word for Spain, will inherit the cities of the south. So this is exactly where the Jews were exiled to after the Romans. They were exiled. All the Jews were put on the border were put into Spain on the border of France, and the Ashkenazim moved north, and immediately north of the Ashkenaz is the city of Troyes, where Rashi, of course, became famous. But there were all Jews in that time. They went. The big yeshiva city in those days was Toledo, and that is in Spain. And at the time, it was before the Sephardi minhagim really started. So all Jews learned in Toledo, and after the Ashkenazi moved north, that's when the customs started to separate. But it is said of those who moved north, it was most of the tribes of Israel were among the Ashkenazim, and
You know
most
what
of
year
the
that was?
uh, about 1,000 years ago, approximately. I didn't.
Oh, so close to around the 1500s or after?
No, around the 900s or so, something like that.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't revisit the exact date in history, but anyway, so it's in the prophecy of Elijah talking about the exile that didn't happen for either the northern or southern kingdom, and he mentions by name France and Spain.
Long before they were countries.
Right. And so it says the exile of Jerusalem. What's the exile of Jerusalem? That's from the same as Ezra chapter 1 verse 5. Benjamin, Judah, and half of the tribe of Levi. And the rest, which means the northern tribes and those who lived in the hill country of Judah among the Judeans, they all went to the Ashkenazic areas. So just as a way of understanding, when the Nazis were trying to kill the Jews, they were trying to kill all 12 tribes, and so just but it also means that generally speaking, a majority of the potential Mashiachs in every generation for the past 1,000 years have been from the Sephardic countries, because most of the royal family was in Jerusalem, right? But we know people such as Lubavitcher Rebbe and many others in Ashkenaz are also descendants of the house of David. So the potential Mashiach could be anywhere. Whether he's Ashkenaz, Sfard, or Yemenite, it doesn't matter. When someone's on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu or an Ezra, you don't argue with them so much. Maybe Daniel, right? Zerubbabel. Why argue with them, whoever they may be, right? Okay, I think we covered some areas I personally have not heard in other classes. I wanted to go out of my way to share with you some of these insights. Hope it's been helpful.
It's been very good.
Any questions or comments before we go?
I have a question, but I'd like to wait and post it just before we start next week.
Okay, yeah,
It's about verse 59.
59. Okay, any hints or no? You're
Well,
waiting.
it has to do with the fact that there were immigrants and illegitimate children that went with these people back to Israel. How the heck did that happen and who were they?
Well, not only that, even they had self-sacrifice to the point that they were recorded for all history as paragons of virtue for their level.
Right, and that they didn't even know who their mothers were or fathers. They just went to Israel to help build the temple.
It's another indication of the egalitarianism of the Torah, that if you're
Is it
serving God, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. If you're not serving
so
God,
these are
it doesn't
spots
matter
from the
who you are, where you're
nation
from.
that when Ezra said that whoever God sets the spirit on can come, when he set that spirit on Babylon, they had illegitimate children who didn't know who their mothers were. They had foundlings. They had children who didn't know who their fathers were. And I mean, it's just, and they were immigrants. Three types of base-born immigrants who, according to the Halakha, were not even permitted to marry into the Jewish community and went and lived there and built the temple.
Right, and just I guess to quote from Isaiah to close it up, again, it's all about serving God, each person at their level. Whether the person has 613 commandments, 66 commandments, or 7 commandments, whatever the case may be, at your level, serve God to the best of your ability. And um, so here in Isaiah chapter 11, remember what it says about Mashiach. Mashiach is not Mashiach because he has super strength like Samson, right? He's Mashiach because he serves God at a high level. So even somebody from a religious family, it doesn't make them Mashiach. Mashiach is somebody who serves God at a very high level. Let's read what Isaiah says about Mashiach, chapter 11. Well, do we have a volunteer translator? Chapter 11, verse 1 through 5.
Of what?
Isaiah.
Okay.
That's page 973 in the Stone edition of Tanakh.
973. All right. And the
1 through 5 in chapter 11. Isaiah.
a staff will grow from the stump of Jesse, and a shoot will sprout from his roots, and the spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and strength, a spirit of knowledge and fear of Hashem. He will be imbued with the spirit of fear for Hashem and will not need to judge by what his eyes see, nor decide by what his ears hear. He will judge the destitute with righteousness and rebuke with fairness the humble of the earth. He will strike the wicked of the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be the girdle around his loins, and faith will be the girdle around his waist.
So the quintessential concept of Mashiach is someone who's very righteous and doesn't compromise it towards heaven or towards people. He's always righteous. So if somebody's doing that, whatever their spiritual level, whatever their background, that's righteousness, and that's worth being mentioned for all eternity in the Book of Ezra, as an example. It's really amazing. Anybody could be worthy to be mentioned in Tanakh, uh, simply by being righteous, even at your level. Wow, what a message that the Book of Ezra chapter 2 is telling us. Right, and of course, when Mashiach comes, Eliyahu comes, Mashiach is probably going to have Elijah write a book of the past couple thousand years of the exile times. So a book will be added to Tanakh, and so if you want to be added to Tanakh, maybe. There's still a possible verse opening up. Put your name on it. Make a little extra effort. But again, it's whatever's available at your level. What is the test that God is giving you? What is the opportunity for a test that God is giving you? They weren't commanded to, so to speak, that they have to give up their riches to go to, other people stayed behind too, and they were not called evil, right? Ezra is not saying you sinners who stayed behind in exile, right?
Right.
Ezra is saying these are the extremely righteous people who went to the Holy Land. So also, if you hear somebody in Israel today insulting people who live outside of the Holy Land, maybe they're not serving Hashem in this area. They mean well, but again, if somebody at a higher level of a test than in the time of now, right? They're worthy to be mentioned Tanakh. So the best way to encourage Aliyah is through being encouraging and again, the implication here in chapter 2 is that it's exceptional for a human to give up their wealth to make Aliyah. Therefore, don't make them give up their wealth. Make sure if they have a business, they could move it to the land of Israel without tariffs or incredible taxation of any kind. Allow businesses to relocate without a heavy burden, and they'll relocate automatically because people want to be in the Holy Land as much as possible. I think that's the best direction for policy to go, to encourage Aliyah in Israel. All right, thanks for learning with me. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Very good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Baruch Hashem.
Sorry I butchered all